After 6 years of waiting in front of ancient lamps and cold Buddhas for Bui Xiao, I suddenly returned to life, back to the very day he brought Lin Ji into the manor. I was Bui Xiao's second wife, while Lin Ji was the younger sister of his deceased first wife. He once said Lin Ji was pitiful and asked us to take care of her. But later, Lin Ji became the cuckoo that stole another's nest. She poisoned me into sickness, confined me to a cold courtyard for 6 years, and Bui Xiao turned a blind eye. This life, I fling his hand away. Take care of her yourself. Let's divorce. When I open my eyes, I meet the worried gaze of Lu Yi, the maid I brought from my maiden home, utterly loyal, who in the past life risked her life for me, only to be sold off by Lin Ji. The madam has finally woken up. I pat Lu Yi's trembling hands, seeing her red-rimmed eyes. Hearing movement, Bui Xiao strides in, bringing a gust of cold wind with him. He has just passed his coming of age, tall and sharp-featured, his brows now furrowed. Stop causing trouble. Lin Ji is merely my younger sister. Younger sister. I stare at him in faint disbelief. That good younger sister of his, the cuckoo nesting in another's home, living in the main courtyard, taking care of him personally. She drugged me into illness, then seized the household finances, driving me to the damp, cold Buddha hall for 6 long years, all because of Bui Xiao's indulgence. He and his first wife were childhood sweethearts. Sadly, she died young, leaving behind a child. My family arranged for me to marry him as his second wife. Though there was no deep affection, we once respected each other as husband and wife, until Lin Ji appeared, hiding behind the title of younger sister, stealing everything from me while Bui Xiao looked away. Now, as I gaze upon him, all I feel is disgust. Taking a deep breath, I speak coolly. Bui Xiao, let's divorce. From now on, whatever happens between you two has nothing to do with me. Before he can reply, I rise with Lu Yi's support and continue. I know Lin Ji is the younger sister of your late wife. It's only right that you take care of her, but I have no such duty, nor do I wish to waste my time and heart between you two any longer. Bui Xiao stays silent, eyes filled with mild impatience, as if searching for a crack in my resolve. Ignoring his gaze, I look toward the table. The divorce letter, I'll have it sent to your courtyard tomorrow. Kindly sign it. From then on, we'll part ways. At that, Bui Xiao lets out a soft laugh, as if he's found my weakness. Tomorrow. Lu Yuaning, are you threatening me? I had no desire to speak further with him, so I ordered Lu Yi to see him out. Bui Xiao swept his arm, shoving Lu Yi aside and stepping forward to block my way, his voice sharp with mockery. Lu Yuaning, this is my house. Put away your petty tricks, I won't be threatened by you. No need to wait until tomorrow. The brush, ink, and paper are all here. Why don't you write it right now? He was certain I was merely bluffing, his tone casual as he pointed to the table. Your Lu family is nothing but a minor household. Marrying into the Bui family was something your parents begged for. If you divorce me, will you throw yourself against the city gates to die? If you don't dare to write, then come with me and apologize to Lin Ji. Before he could finish, I flung his arm away. The force of it caught him off guard, he nearly stumbled into the door. Lu Yuaning, have you gone mad? The brush, ink, and paper were indeed all there, no need to wait until tomorrow. I dipped the brush in ink, and with a few swift strokes, finished a clear, complete divorce letter. Turning back, I slapped the paper onto his chest. Sign it. If you don't, you're no better than a cowardly child. In my previous life, I'd been soft-hearted and allowed Lin Ji into the manor. Step by step, she trampled over me to climb higher. Bui Xiao had loved his first wife, his childhood sweetheart. Yet when he married me, he still performed every proper rite, the 3 letters, the 6 ceremonies, and an 8-carried bridal sedan. Though the Lu family lacked noble standing, I was a properly raised daughter from a respectable family. His mother had personally visited our home several times, hearing that I was gentle and virtuous, kind in nature. She pleaded with my father to marry me into their household. On our wedding night, Bui Xiao had even promised to cherish me for life, entrusting the management of the household finances to me. As a young girl before marriage, I had known nothing of human malice. I only knew that Bui Xiao was a great general, a man who rode to battle for the great Zhou, courageous and loyal, a hero who upheld the heavens. Only after 6 years wasting away in the rear courtyard did I truly understand, through long, lonely days, that Bui Xiao had never loved me. He had married me simply because he needed a wife of clean background, capable of managing his household. His young children needed a kind stepmother. That, in itself, would have been fine, a respectful, distant marriage. He gave me proper standing, and I managed his home faithfully. But when the Lam family declined, Bui Xiao brought Lin Ji into the manor. Lin Ji resembled her late sister too closely. From the first glance, he had been struck. No matter what anyone said, he insisted on bringing her back, arranging quarters for her within his own residence. Lin Ji was frail and delicate, so he assigned a physician and a personal cook to her care. When she suffered nightmares, servants would rush in the night to report, and Bui Xiao, tossing on his robe, would hurry to her side, leaving me alone. When Lin Ji's maid gave me the wrong medicine, a conflicting tonic that damaged my health, he merely said his younger sister hadn't meant harm, and told me not to blame her. Yuaning, just rest well. Leave the household matters to Lin Ji. She's from a noble family, she'll handle things easily. The servants, seeing where power now lay, grew increasingly neglectful of me. While I lay ill in that cold side courtyard, Bui Xiao took Lin Ji to banquets, mingling with the great clans, paving the way for the Lam family's return to favor. She's working hard in your stead, he told me. You, staying home and resting, isn't that a blessing? He claimed I was unfit for social occasions, that I would only embarrass him outside. Meanwhile, I cared for his mother, raised his children. His eldest son, Bui Shiwu, was born frail, with a chill in his bones since the womb. I spent countless nights keeping watch beside him, nights that never seemed to end. But to Bui Xiao, such things were merely a wife's duty, unworthy of praise. He dismissed my devotion as trivial, my presence as meaningless. When my thoughts returned to the present, Bui Xiao had already taken the divorce letter in hand, realizing, at last, what I had done. Lu Yuaning, you've truly lost your mind. His face turned pale as he read, unable to believe I had truly written it. Where will you go after leaving me? Setting the brush down, I raised my brows slightly. If you won't sign, then you and Lin Ji can both come kneel before my door to apologize. Impudent. He strode up to the desk, slammed the divorce letter down. You'll regret this, don't come crawling back to beg me. I sat down lazily, voice flat. Why so much talk? Are you signing or not? Provoked, Bui Xiao snatched up the brush, scrawled his signature, then slammed the door behind him as he left. He had always believed the Lu family was beneath his own, that this marriage was something I had begged for, that without him I would not survive. How laughable. After he was gone, Louis came to help me up, her face anxious. Miss, this divorce, do the master and madam know yet? I looked at her, weary. We wrote the letter right here, didn't we? Seeing her stricken expression, I couldn't help but laugh softly. Don't fret. Pack our things. From now on, you'll still call me Miss. If I have a bite to eat, you'll have one too. The news that the second wife, Lu Yuaning, had divorced Bui Xiao spread quickly throughout the manor. I wasn't concerned with gossip, there was nothing here worth holding on to. When the old Madame Bui was still alive, she had treated me kindly. It was she who had first taken a liking to me. But she fell ill and passed away not long after I entered the household. Before dinner, Lin Ji arrived at my courtyard, holding a paper oil umbrella, her steps graceful and slow. I looked up at the sky, the sun was setting, the air was clear and still, no wind, no rain. What use was that umbrella? But of course, Bui Xiao always liked that kind of frail, delicate act of hers. She came to probe for information. As soon as she stepped inside, she dropped into a pitiful bow, her tone weak and mournful. If Madame is angry with the general because of Lin Ji, how could Lin Ji bear such guilt? Every word, dripping with pretense, implying that I was being childish, using divorce to vent my temper. In my previous life, she had done this too. Back then, I hadn't yet seen through her nature. I had only heard that her family had fallen into ruin and pitied her, a poor orphaned girl. Though I found it improper that she lived in Bui Xiao's quarters, I only felt sympathy. Before she could even kneel, I had hurried to lift her up, and she'd taken the chance to lean against me, weeping pitifully. When Bui Xiao walked in on that scene, he scolded me for bullying her. But this time, I already knew her true face. If she wanted to kneel, let her kneel. I sat still, not moving an inch. You can bear it, can't you? From now on, I'll leave the general's care entirely to you. Lin Zi froze, stammering. Madam misunderstands. There's nothing improper between me and the general. I tilted my head slightly, feigning surprise. Oh. You don't wish to stay by his side, then. Once we're divorced, the general's household will still need a madam. Her lips parted, and I saw the flicker of joy in her eyes. She had always wanted to replace me, to become the true Madame Bui. Unfortunately, though Bui Xiao looked down on my family, he looked down on hers even more. He pitied her because she resembled his late wife, that was all. Even when I was sick and bedridden, and she shadowed him day and night, he had never truly considered marrying her. One of them was scheming, the other arrogant beyond reason. This lifetime, I would let them entangle themselves freely, and see how far they could go without me. After confirming the divorce from me, Lin Ji left with barely concealed delight. The door creaked as it shut, and a shadow lingered beyond the window. I sighed softly. Come in. After a long pause, a small figure stepped in hesitantly. A young voice asked. Mother, are you really leaving father? Bui Shiwu, the only child of Bui Xiao and his late wife, the only child I had under my care in my past life. When I married Bui Xiao, he was 2 years old, a toddler just learning to walk, calling me mother in a tender, lisping voice. In the blink of an eye, he was now 6, his tone steadier, his eyes more knowing. He had lost his birth mother early. His father was distant, his grandmother sickly, he had no one truly close. When I became his mother, he clung to me constantly, afraid I might leave him. In the last life, after Lin Ji poisoned me and took my authority, I had wanted to abandon everything, even if it meant dying alone in my maiden home. But as I packed my belongings, Bui Shiwu had seen me. He hadn't said a word, only run back to his room and wept silently. He was 10 then, old enough to understand a little. Though Lin Ji was his blood aunt, she distrusted him, never teaching him properly. After all, she aimed to become the mistress of the Bui household. One day, she would bear her own children, and a legitimate eldest son, older than her own offspring, would be an obstacle she could not tolerate. If there was anything I could not let go of in that house, it was Bui Shiwu. With Bui Xiao's blindness, I feared the boy would not be raised well after I left. I stroked his soft hair, hesitating. Bui Shiwu, if mother and father separate, would you come with me? His eyes brightened for a moment, then dimmed again. He shook his head and whispered. Mother, go by yourself. I am a son of the Bui family. You can't take me with you. I held his small, warm hand, my heart aching. He was still so little, soft as kneaded dough. If you're willing, no matter what, I'll take you with me. But Bui Shiwu remained resolute. So be it. Staying in the Bui household, he would at least remain the legitimate heir, the son of the wife whom Bui Xiao had once loved most. Following me, he would only face hardship and uncertainty. I instructed the steward and his nursemaid to care for him well, then hugged Bui Shiwu tightly again and again. That final embrace, the look in his eyes was far too mature for his age. After the divorce, I took my dowry and prepared to leave the Bui manor. The day the carriage was ready, a servant from Bui Xiao's courtyard came to deliver a message. He said that if I regretted my decision, I only had to say the word, and the divorce letter would be treated as if it never existed. I merely smiled politely and told him to leave. The servant lingered at the door, hesitant. "Madam, do you have any message you wish this servant to deliver to the general?" I smiled faintly and shook my head. "None." Louis stepped forward, whispered something in my ear. My expression darkened. I called the servant back. "Wait. Bring a few men. Come with me." He looked puzzled, but for years I had been the one managing the household. They were used to following my orders, so he quickly gathered some men to accompany me. I led them straight to Lin Ji's quarters. Louis had discovered, while checking the dowry inventory, that several porcelain vases, lacquered screens, ornaments, and rare medicinal ingredients from my dowry were missing, taken by people from Lin Ji's courtyard. News of my divorce had already spread throughout the manor. My luggage and carriage were all prepared, and yet Lin Ji still hadn't returned what she'd taken. So, I decided to reclaim it myself. Reclaim, indeed, but rather than argue, I ordered the men to go directly inside and carry the items out. "Stop. Where do you dogs get the nerve to touch my things?" Lin Ji, who had been playing the gentle, considerate lady in Bui Xiao's room, came running out the moment she heard the commotion. Seeing the servants hauling boxes out of her chamber, she was livid. "You insolent slaves! How dare you behave so wildly in the general's courtyard?" She tried to block their way, but the carters didn't recognize her authority and simply pushed her aside, carrying on with their work. Stomping her foot in fury, Lin Ji turned and ran to fetch Bui Xiao for help. By the time she dragged him out, the servants had already moved everything into the yard and were sealing the crates. Bui Xiao's face darkened instantly. "Stop. All of you, stop right now." The servants froze mid-motion. So, the great general truly meant to swallow my dowry whole. I stepped out from Lin Ji's chambers, my voice echoing through the courtyard. Lin Ji clung to his arm, tears trembling in her lashes. "Miss Liu, why would you falsely accuse me of such a thing?" Bui Xiao's expression shifted, his eyes held a glint of smug amusement. "Yuaning, if you want these boxes, take them. Just don't leave." So, he thought I'd staged this scene to find an excuse to stay. How laughable. Does the mighty general truly think I'm trying to get your attention? I gestured to Lu Yi. "Lu Yi, bring out the list of my dowry for the general to see. Let's confirm whether these boxes are mine or not." Bui Xiao took the list with a doubtful look. The longer he read, the deeper his frown grew. He turned to Lin Ji. "Where did you get these things?" Her eyes darted away. Her fingers clutched tighter at his sleeve. I asked the servants to fetch them from storage. I thought they belonged to my elder sister. "My dowry chests are all labeled," I said coolly. "Each has the Liu family seal, and my full name written clearly. Tell me, Miss Lam, does your elder sister happen to share both my name and my family?" Lin Ji's eyes reddened, her lips trembling as if on the verge of tears. "Don't make things difficult for Lin Ji," Bui Xiao said, his tone softening at once. I let out a cold laugh. "Then return my dowry. Or is the great general's residence so poor it must steal from a woman's dowry to survive?" His face darkened. The earlier hint of pride vanished. "You truly mean to leave, then?" I nodded toward the servants closing the crates. "More than gladly." "Fine. Fine. Fine." He spat the word 3 times, his fingers shaking as he pointed at the boxes. Lin Ji, still clutching his sleeve, spoke in a frail, trembling voice. "Brother-in-law, it seems Miss Liu truly intends to leave. Why not let her go? Lin Ji will stay with you." Bui Xiao stared at me for a long moment, but I didn't so much as glance his way. At last, he sneered. "Then go. Go now." Linji, the things in your room, let the steward take you to choose new ones. Whatever you want, you shall have. Linji's joyful voice followed instantly. Thank you, brother-in-law. You're so kind to me. Brother-in-law. Brother-in-law. I turned away in disgust. In my past life, those two had sung that tune before me day after day, brother-in-law this, younger sister that, veiled affection under a flimsy pretense of kinship. The moment I showed a hint of displeasure, they accused me of jealousy, of being small-minded, incapable of tolerating a little sister. When word of my divorce reached my family, my parents were the first to rush to the small courtyard I had rented for temporary lodging, both urging me to go back and apologize to Bui Xiao. Marriage, my father said heavily, is arranged by the parents, sealed by matchmakers. How can a daughter dissolve it on a whim? How will we show our faces outside? He sat sighing on the chair, a scholar with no great talent, whose only boast in life had been marrying his daughter into the prestigious Bui household. My mother added her share of persuasion. Lin Ji is just an orphaned girl, the younger sister of the general's first wife. It's only proper for you, as her elder sister-in-law, to look after her a little. I asked quietly. Is that what you call sisterly care, clinging to my husband day and night? Mother froze and glanced at father instinctively. He glared at me. Look at your jealous temper. You're the mistress of the house, you should be magnanimous. No matter what that girl does, she can never surpass you. But you go and step down yourself, giving up the position of madam for another to take. Heaven help me, how did I raise such a foolish daughter? Mother sighed and wrung her hands. We worked so hard to marry you into such a good match, the Bui family. Your younger brother is still studying. We were counting on the general's support in the future, and now you want a divorce. I looked at my mother in disappointment. Just like in my past life, they only cared about what benefit I could bring to the family, never about how I was actually living in the Bui household. Whenever I returned home to visit, my parents never asked how my husband treated me. Instead, they only asked Bui Xiao to help my younger brother get into the Zijing Academy, the most prestigious school in the prefecture, reserved for the sons of nobles and officials. When I stayed silent, my father slammed the table and barked. You, go apologize to Bui Xiao right now. Speak gently, persuade him to take Lin Ji as a concubine. In the end, he'll be grateful to you. That moment, I lost the last ounce of faith I had left. After I was married, my parents were no longer a refuge. Pathetic, really, how in my previous life, when I sat alone in that cold courtyard, I had still dreamed they might come to take me home. But now, the divorce letter was signed, my belongings already packed. For them to tell me to return, absolutely not. I stood up and called Louis over. I know the neighbors will gossip, but you don't need to worry that I'll embarrass the family by going back. A daughter once married off is like water poured out. In a few days, I'll be gone. Louis, see our guests out. In my previous life, during the second year after Lin Ji entered the manor, I had heard that the capital was promoting a new reform, allowing women to establish their own households, encouraging them to step beyond the inner chambers. Women trapped in unhappy marriages could even file for divorce directly with the magistrate, and the court would hear such cases fairly. That night, when I proposed divorce, I had already thought it through. I would go to the capital. I would take advantage of this new wave of reform and live anew. I was born in Jiangnan, the land of rivers and mist, skilled with embroidery since young. Back then, I had even taken lessons from a master seamstress to make garments for Bui Xiao. It was a craft I could rely on to survive. Pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. Before my parents thought to use my dowry against me, I quietly exchanged all my embroidered silks and trinkets for silver. Fortunately, when I first married, my parents had given me a sizable dowry to avoid being looked down on by the Bui family. The silver I now carried was enough for Louis and me to reach the capital, and still have enough left to rent a small shop. I turned to Louis and said, "If you're willing to come with me, from now on you'll be my younger sister. We'll go to the capital together, find work, and live by our own hands. Louis nodded rapidly, eyes brimming with determination. I'm willing, Mississippi. I'll follow you anywhere. Good. This time, at least, I could save this foolish, loyal girl. That alone made the journey worth it. The small town was quiet. I left the Bowie Manor through the back gate, unnoticed. Yet within 2 days, news that I had moved out spread throughout the entire city. In these times, most women in unhappy marriages endured in silence. Divorce was rare, almost unheard of. My decision became the talk of the town overnight. Along Bowie Xiao's route to court, people whispered and pointed. Some, prying for gossip, even asked whether they would soon be invited to his wedding feast with Lin Ji. I knew this was Lin Ji's doing. She wanted to turn the rumor into reality, to make my divorce with Bowie Xiao official in the eyes of all. But she was too eager. She didn't consider how much Bowie Xiao valued his reputation. For a man like him, public shame was intolerable. Just as Louis and I were about to slip quietly out through the city gate, Bowie Xiao appeared, shocked, furious. His expression was dark as a storm. Lu Yuaning, you married into the Bowie family. You'll live as one of us, and die as one of us. Without my permission, you are not leaving. I stepped back and raised my voice. Bowie Xiao, you already signed the divorce letter. You are a general, will you go back on your word like a coward? At my words, he rubbed the hilt of his sword but said nothing. One of his attendants spoke up quickly. Madam must be mistaken, there was no divorce letter. Madam and the general merely quarreled. The general has humbled himself to fetch you home, please return with us. My heart sank. So this was his plan, to deny everything. The Bowie family's influence in Luocheng was vast. The city lord himself was a distant relative of his. If Bowie Xiao refused to acknowledge the divorce, the local officials would surely take his side. I cursed myself silently, why hadn't I left earlier? If only I had already crossed the city's borders. Under the current reign, the imperial court emphasized the rule of law. Once beyond Luocheng, even Bowie Xiao's power would mean nothing. Bowie Xiao, I said steadily, you can have any woman you want. You and I no longer have feelings for each other. Why force this? Let us go our separate ways. Even as I spoke, I searched for a way out. Worst case, I'd let him take me back and find another chance to escape. But if I yielded now, this act of defiance would lose all meaning. The chance that had pushed him to sign the divorce letter once, it wouldn't come again. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. Bowie Xiao waved his hand impatiently. If you're worried about Lin Ji, I'll have her move to another courtyard. Stop causing trouble. Come here. At his order, the servant stepped forward to grab me. Louis rushed in front of me, shouting. Who dares? My lady has already divorced the general. That word, divorce, had been haunting Bowie Xiao for days. His colleagues had laughed behind his back, whispering that his wife had abandoned him. Hearing Louis repeat it now made his face twist with fury. Come here. He roared. Father. Amid the shout came a small, trembling voice. Bowie Xiao froze and turned. A child had run up behind him, tugging at the hem of his robe, looking up with wide, wet eyes. The steward followed close behind, face drawn in distress. Master, the young heir wouldn't stop crying. He insisted on seeing you. I looked at little Bowie Shiwu's face, so small, so innocent, and my heart tightened painfully with sorrow and helpless affection. Bowie Xiao doted on Bowie Shiwu deeply, so much so that he had never even considered having children with me. Hearing his son's cries, he bent down at once and scooped the boy into his arms. What's wrong, Shiwu? Then he looked at me, his eyes thoughtful. Missing your mother Yuaning again. Before Bowie Shiwu, he always called me Mother Yuaning, as if to constantly remind both himself and me that I was not her, not his late wife, the one he truly loved. It was his way of setting the boundaries, of reminding me of my place. Father will bring Mother Yuaning home right away, all right. Bui Shiwu turned his face aside. His gaze flickered toward me for only a heartbeat before sliding away. Then he wrapped his small arms around Bui Xiao's neck and whimpered in a strange, practiced tone. Father, Shiwu doesn't want Mother Yuaning. Shiwu wants Auntie. Bui Xiao patted his back, trying to soothe him. All right, all right. We'll go find your aunt when we get home, all right? But Bui Shiwu's lips trembled, his golden teardrops falling one after another. Then let Mother Yuaning go. Let her go. Wah, wah, wah. Bui Xiao frowned, clearly flustered. He didn't know how to handle a crying child. My chest ached as I clutched the handkerchief in my hand. The boy was crying so hard he could barely breathe. If he cried too long, it could harm his health, and Bui Xiao, the so-called great general, couldn't even comfort his own son. Forget it. I would bide my time, for now. I almost reached out to take Bui Shiwu into my arms, but he turned his head away and buried himself against Bui Xiao's chest. Father, don't you love me anymore? He sobbed, gasping for air. I miss Mother. At those words, Bui Xiao's steps, which had been moving toward me, halted abruptly. His face flickered with unreadable emotion. After a long silence, he patted Bui Shiwu's back and turned away without even a glance at me, carrying the boy back toward the city. I looked at Bui Shiwu one last time, then tugged Lu Yi's sleeve. Go, now. I whispered. Afraid of giving fate another chance to change its mind, we scrambled into the carriage and drove off at full speed toward the capital. I didn't dare slow until the city walls of Locke were long behind us. Only then did I let out a trembling breath. My heart still pounded in my chest, but for the first time in years, I felt light, free. At that time, the imperial princess was acting as regent, promoting reforms that encouraged women to step beyond their household gates. It was the best possible moment for a woman to begin again. In my previous life, I had stayed confined in the Bui family's inner courtyard. By the time I heard of those reforms, years had passed. My body was frail, my life already waning. Now, as our carriage entered the capital, I saw many women walking the streets, some managing small stalls, others welcoming guests into their shops. Their numbers were few but growing, their smiles bright in the sunlight. Lu Yi and I rented a small shop and spent the first few days studying the market. Fortune favored us. More and more women were venturing into business, and the demand for fashionable clothing and accessories was rising fast. Ready-made boutiques couldn't keep up. I brought out my embroidered samples, Jiangnan-style floral patterns, intricate and elegant. They drew admiring looks and eager hands from ladies and young mistresses alike. With the government now encouraging women's enterprises, no one dared to bully us. Soon, our little shop opened smoothly and business began to thrive. The following year, the capital officially issued an edict allowing women to establish their own households. I was among the first to apply. When our household registration was approved, it bore two names, mine and Lu Yi's. Lu Yi clutched the document, tears spilling down her cheeks. Miss, from now on, we're truly family. I tapped her on the forehead, smiling. When we have time, I'll teach you to write. You should at least know your own name. Look here, do you know what these three characters say? She shook her head. I pointed at each one. Lu Yi. From now on, your name is Lu Yi. Her eyes widened, and she waved her hands in alarm. No, no. How could that be? If the master knew, how could Lu Yi bear his surname? I took her hand gently. The court allows women to establish their own households now. Lu is my family name. You're my sister, naturally, you share it. It has nothing to do with my father. When I've earned enough, I'll return the dowry silver my parents gave me. But I am my own person now, my name, my life, belong to me. Over time, I moved us into a larger shop and hired 2 apprentices. Business flourished, our days were full and content. At the new year, I sent a letter home, enclosing half the dowry money. I asked after my parents' health and my younger brother's studies. To stay safe, I listed the return address as a tavern 2 streets away. A month later, my father's reply arrived. In it, he asked whether I had remarried, mentioned that Bui Xiao still had no proper wife, and urged me not to make trouble outside, to return home as soon as possible. I folded the letter, put it away, and never looked at it again. The second time I heard news of Bui Xiao and Lin Ji, I felt strangely detached, as if those names belonged to a distant dream I'd long since woken from. The story came from a merchant newly arrived from Luocheng. He told me that since I'd left, Lin Ji had begun calling herself the mistress of the Bui household, living in Bui Xiao's courtyard and attending banquets with him. Yet, curiously, Bui Xiao never once mentioned marrying her. She remained at his side, nameless, titleless, like a shadow clinging to someone else's light. Last year, the merchant continued animatedly, the household had even prepared for a wedding. The great General Bui was to marry his late wife's younger sister. What was her name again? Lu Yi, standing beside me, murmured softly, Lin Ji. Right, right. Lin Ji. The merchant slapped his thigh. The bridal sedan was already carried out from the general's residence. Since her own family was gone, she was to depart from the Bui manor, circle the city, and return there for the ceremony. But when the vows began, guess what happened? A servant nearby, unable to resist, urged, "Come on, what? Don't keep us hanging." The merchant chuckled, leaning in. The general's son, the one born of his first wife, was there. He called Lin Ji auntie. During the tea ceremony, when he lifted the cup, his sleeve slipped back. The general happened to see it. He spread his hands dramatically. On that small arm, bruises, dark and deep. When questioned, the servants revealed they were from Lin Ji's beatings. Can you believe it? The child was her own nephew. What a vicious woman! Louis gasped. Then, what about the wedding? Cancelled, of course. The woman was thrown out of Luocheng. The general dotes on his son like he's his very soul, he wouldn't stand anyone harming the boy. He even said he wished he could keep the child by his side every day. At that, I finally exhaled in relief, though a strange unease stirred within me. In my past life, Shiwu and Bui Xiao had never been close. After his birth mother's death, Bui Xiao was often away, the boy grew up feeling abandoned. For a time, Bui Xiao pitied him, but as the years passed and the child's distance hardened into quiet resentment, the father's patience waned. Eventually, Bui Xiao sent him to a boarding academy, far from home, and forgot about him. But in this life, things were different. When I left, Bui Shiwu had been the one to coax him, to cry in his arms, and now he was said to be cherished, protected, surrounded by attendants and tutors. And Lin Ji, ruthless, deceitful Lin Ji, she had always worn her mask of gentleness in front of the boy. For her to actually raise a hand against him, that was unlike her. No matter how cruel she was, she would never have risked her place by harming the child of the woman Bui Xiao still mourned. Unless... I remembered the look in Bui Shiwu's eyes on the day I left. That calm, steady gaze, too deep for a child his age. A thought flickered in me, sharp and fleeting. Did he already know something then? Or was he, too, reborn like me? I brushed the thought aside. Life in the capital had claimed my days fully. The timing of my arrival had been perfect, the reform edicts had just taken root, and I became one of the first women to build a business under the Princess Regent's new policies. Officials saw me as an example to encourage other women, and I received support from the princess's aides. The embroidery patterns I'd brought from Luocheng were fresh and intricate, unlike anything in the capital. With diligence, Lu Yi and I began designing full ensembles, dresses, scarves, and accessories paired as themed sets. We launched limited collections under poetic names, spring dawn, summer breeze, autumn whispers, winter glow. Later came the 24 solar terms series, each design reflecting the changing seasons. I invited scholars and poets to inscribe verses for each collection, turning garments into works of art. Soon, every new release from Ning Atelier, our shop in the northern quarter, sold out instantly. For the young ladies of the capital, wearing our designs became a mark of prestige, a symbol of taste and status. The Minister of Commerce himself often stopped by, ordering garments for his wife. Once, he laughed and said, "Miss Liu, you truly understand the art of business." It was in the midst of such calm success that Bui Xiao reappeared. He had come to the capital on official duty, and somehow, through what must have been considerable effort, found his way to my shop. The day Bui Xiao appeared, I was in the midst of preparing for the grand opening of my second shop in the southern quarter of the capital, far too busy to spare him even a breath of attention. "You." "Ning." His hesitant voice reached me. When I turned, his eyes lit up as if he had found something precious. I gave him a single glance. It was my day of celebration, and his presence felt like a curse. He strode toward me, reaching out as though to take my hand. "Yuaning, Lin Ji has been cast out. Come back with me." His gaze swept over me from head to toe, and he added with a faint smile, "This outfit suits you. You should dress like this from now on." Lu Yi, standing beside me, arched a brow and replied crisply, "Of course it suits her. It's our Autumn Whispers collection, the best-selling design of Ning Atelier." The little maid had grown sharp-tongued over the years. My sturdy shop assistant, seeing Bui Xiao reach for me, stepped forward and blocked his path. "Who are you?" he barked. Bui Xiao's expression darkened. His eyes turned cold as he measured the man. "I'm her husband," he said icily. "And you're just her servant. Don't bother coming back tomorrow." By then, a crowd had begun to gather, curious shoppers, onlookers, and regular patrons. I took a slow breath, restraining the urge to curse aloud at the sight of this man. "This little shop can't accommodate a great general such as yourself," I said evenly. "And my business needs no interference. As for the word husband, I dare not accept it. You and I have been divorced for years. Everyone here can bear witness, since our separation, I have had no ties with General Bui." Bui Xiao gave a mocking laugh. "Since ancient times, no woman has ever asked for a divorce. I thought you were only sulking. Surely your temper has cooled by now. Exposing yourself like this, is this how a proper woman behaves?" That single sentence set the entire shop ablaze. Before I could even respond, a clear female voice rang out from the crowd. "What nonsense! The capital has allowed women to divorce and register their own households for years. If a wife's life is unhappy, of course she can leave." Several noble ladies and young mistresses, regular patrons of Ning Atelier, frowned at him. "A woman running her shop openly and honorably, why shouldn't she? You must be new to the capital, sir. You clearly don't know how things work here." Bui Xiao's face hardened. In Luocheng, he had always been untouchable, feared, respected, flattered. Never had anyone dared to challenge him like this. And now, to be surrounded by women, standing against him in public. "Who are you," he growled, "to speak over me? A mere woman dares interrupt a general." The young girl who had spoken first raised her chin, her eyes bright. "I am the only daughter of General Zhongyi. I joined the battlefield at 13. Do you think I lack the right to speak to you?" Bui Xiao froze. General Zhongyi was no minor officer, he was a hero at the frontier, his military merit second to none. The daughter of such a man had earned her place through courage and steel. Compared to that, the so-called general before us, a man who'd spent years coasting on his title and connections, was a hollow shadow. Another woman, the elegant matron who often purchased from me, spoke next, her tone biting. "I, too, am divorced. My former husband was a palace guard under the emperor himself, and what of it? I now serve as an astral officer in the Imperial Observatory, personally appointed by His Majesty. I believe that qualifies me to speak." The color drained from Bui Xiao's face. The astral officer post, though it sounded ceremonial, was in truth a prestigious rank in the Bureau of Astronomy, one of the few offices with direct access to the throne. And then came the softest yet firmest voice of all. "I hold no title," said Lu Yi, stepping forward. The crowd quieted. Bui Xiao's brows furrowed, he recognized her. Anger flickered in his eyes, but before he could speak, Lu Yi continued. "Once, I was merely a servant in the Bui household. When Madame Yuaning and General Bui divorced, both signed the letter. I can testify to that. I may be no one important, but I've made an honest living. Now, Madame Yuaning teaches me to read and write, and I earn my bread with my own hands. What the general says is wrong. Even as a commoner, even as a woman, I have the right to speak, and I will speak." Bravo! General Zhang Yi's daughter was the first to cheer, clapping her hands, her voice ringing bright. The other women around us followed, noble ladies, scholars' wives, merchants, and apprentices alike. Applause and shouts of encouragement filled the air. Even a few men in the shop joined in, smiling as they clapped for Lu Yi, and for every woman who refused to bow her head. Lu Yi stood a few paces away, cheeks tinged pink but her eyes bright, a small, triumphant smile playing at her lips, as if waiting for my praise. Bui Xiao, shaking with fury, staggered back several steps. "Hey, General Bui," the tiger-eyed officer's daughter called out suddenly. "You're the Bui Xiao from Luocheng, aren't you?" I gave a slight nod, glancing toward her with curiosity. She folded her arms and said clearly for all to hear. "In Luocheng, this Bui Xiao has no real military merit. He's lived off the people's taxes for years, shielded by the city lord's favor, and extorted the common folk with excessive levies. I suppose your trip to the capital is to face dismissal and punishment, isn't it?" I didn't even have to turn to see. Bui Xiao reeled backward, his face ashen, his glare at the young woman feral and cornered. Clearly, every word she said was true. You reap what you sow. Just moments ago he'd tried to deceive me, to coax me back, shameless as ever. My new shop opened right on schedule. On that first day alone, the revenue equaled the capital I'd used to rent my very first little storefront years ago when I'd just arrived in the capital. The Princess Regent, upon hearing of our story, praised the independence and determination of the two sisters, Lu Yi and me, and personally bestowed a plaque bearing her calligraphy. As for Bui Xiao, he was dismissed and placed under investigation. Within months, he was imprisoned for 2 years. Someone had accused him of bribery and corruption from the time he'd rescued Lin Ji years ago. When the case reopened, the officials had struggled for proof, until the old expense records I'd once warned him about, the ones I'd quietly kept, found their way to the authorities. By the time he was released again, I was already a wealthy merchant with over a dozen branch shops. Ning Atelier had expanded from the capital to Chang'an and Jinling. Everyone knew the name Lu Yuaning, the famed businesswoman of the empire. The son under my roof, brilliant and gentle, had passed the imperial examinations as third laureate. After bidding me farewell, he went to assume office elsewhere, promising to return once he had earned distinction. When Bui Xiao stood outside my gates and heard from a gatekeeper that I now had a son who'd become an official, he went pale, dizzy, and fainted right there by the door. When he awoke, lying in the gatehouse, panting weakly, he murmured, How could she have a son?" The gatekeeper pitied him and offered half a bowl of plain porridge, but a shabby, gray-haired man who looked like a beggar could never be permitted to meet the mistress of this household. After several days of waiting in vain, Bui Xiao finally gave up. Carrying the remnants of his belongings, he stumbled back toward Luocheng, consoling himself that he still had one son there, that at least someone would see to his burial. But the third laureate he had heard of was my son, Lu Shiwu. Back then, after Bui Xiao's disgrace and the confiscation of his property, the boy could no longer attend the academy. Quick-witted as ever, he told the messenger sent to fetch him that he wished to come to the capital to find me. From that day on, he took my surname, becoming Lu Shiwu, son of Lu Yuaning. I had told him that if he preferred, he could keep his father's name, or even take his late mother's. It mattered little, I loved him all the same. But Shiwu shook his head. My birth mother is gone, he said. I will burn incense for her every year and pray for her peace. Other than that, I am your son. When Bui Xiao finally returned to Luocheng, Shiwu had already arranged for a small courtyard and some silver to be left for him, enough for food, medicine, and a decent burial when the time came. It was his way of repaying the bare duty of blood between them. But the hope of having children at his side, of a warm family to care for him in his old age, was something Bui Xiao would never know again. Shiwu, fearing I might be angry, told me softly. If mother dislikes it, I'll cut ties with him completely. I only shook my head. The grudge is long settled. An old man returning to his home, what is there left to hate? Lin Ji died in the second year after being expelled from the Bui household. Her cruelty toward the family's legitimate heir had become notorious. Once cast out, no one dared to take her in. She wandered the streets, destitute and alone. A cook once lusted after her beauty and proposed to make her his wife, but the very next day the Bui household steward sent a warning. If the young master ever sees her living with anyone, that person will share her fate. The cook's mother dragged him home by the ear. Lin Ji died that winter, one so bitterly cold that it must have been colder still than the winters I once endured, sick and shivering in that dark, unheated courtyard long ago. Lu Yi eventually married, a young lieutenant serving under General Zhong Yi. Though only a minor officer, he was both brave and clever, loyal and respectful, and never once looked down on women. For days before the wedding, he could be found outside my clothing shop, twirling his spear, pretending to train, but his eyes were clearly set on someone else. The drunkard's interest, as the saying goes, was never really in the wine. After their marriage, Louis continued to serve as the manager of my southern branch. She traveled often, and together we imported fine veils and silks from the western regions. The purpose of the new reform was to grant women freedom, not to restrict them. We could choose to marry those we loved, to raise beloved children, or to walk away from unhappy unions. Whatever Lu Yi chose, I would support her. The same applied to Shi Wu. When he found a young woman he cared for, I blessed them. If one day he chose not to marry, but to devote his life to public service, I would bless him all the same. Life was vast. After 6 years trapped within those suffocating walls, I knew better than anyone that freedom, true freedom, was worth more than gold. Side story, Bui Shiwu. My mother died young. Even before her death, she had been gravely ill. My father could have stayed by her side in the manor, but though his lips claimed to love her, he was never there. The second year after her passing, a new mistress entered our household. I hated her. My stomach hurt, terribly so. When father returned home from his travels, he brought fashionable trinkets and jade pendants, smiling as he asked if I liked them. He didn't notice how pale I was. The one who did notice was Lu Yuaning, father's new wife. She was gentle, never raised her voice. While father brushed off her concern, she crouched down and wiped the cold sweat from my forehead with her sleeve. Shiwu, she asked softly, where does it hurt? I hadn't wanted to speak to her, but the pain bent me double, and I couldn't hold back. Lu Yuaning's face tightened with worry. Without hesitation, she lifted me into her arms and ran straight for the physician. Father only stood there, dumbstruck. She was small, how did she carry me so easily? The physician said I couldn't eat strawberries or preserved fruits, they aggravated my illness. After that, those things disappeared from my table. I'd thought it was father's doing, until one day, while studying in his study, he absent-mindedly handed me a plate of bright red strawberries. Then I knew, the one who had remembered me all along was Lu Yuaning. Born weak, I was often sick. But after father married her, I was never alone at night when illness came. Whenever I woke in fevered dreams, she was there, humming a lullaby. Once, I asked her, "Why do you stay up so late, watching over me?" She smiled, the kind of smile that deepened her dimples and softened her whole face. "I'm your mother," she said. "If I don't take care of you, who will?" So that's what a mother truly is. But my birth mother, she had never been like that. There were wet nurses, servants, attendants. Among the noble households, few mothers ever personally tended to their own children. That kind of love was a luxury. I suppose I was fortunate that Lu Yuaning came into my life. My father always said he loved me, but his love existed only in words. The night before my preliminary exam, I burned with fever. It was Lu Yuaning who stayed awake by my bedside the whole night. Naturally, I didn't perform well in the exam. My father's face darkened, and Aunt Linji, all gentle smiles, patted my head as she said sweetly, "Shiwu is my elder sister's child, he should be clever and capable. How could he fail to answer such simple questions? Perhaps his tutor is not doing his job properly." Her tone was soft, but her eyes flickered toward my father, her body leaning just a little too close to his. The next day, my father scolded Lu Yuaning harshly. The servants said father loved me very much. Loved me, but he never once asked why I had done poorly. Instead, he blamed someone else, as if shouting proved affection. I refused to accept it. I went to confront him, but before I reached the door, I overheard his voice through the window, speaking with Lin Ji. After all, she shares no blood with Shiwu. You, his aunt, are closer to him by nature. So that was it. From the beginning, his heart had already been biased. Under Lin Ji's persuasion, my father decided to send me away to study at the academy in Lin City. I didn't want to leave Lu Yuaning. "Foolish child," she said gently, "studying is a good thing. I've heard the teachers there are excellent." So I went. I studied hard, night and day. I told myself that if I excelled, she would be happy. But when I returned home for the new year, it was Linji managing the household. She moved with the air of a true mistress, as if she had been born to the position. Her gaze, when it followed me from behind, was cold as frost. Yet before my father, she played the part of a kind and tender aunt, calling me good boy with every other breath. I went to visit Lu Yuaning. She was resting in a small, quiet courtyard. Father said she was unwell and needed peace. She had grown thinner, her face pale, yet when she saw me, her smile bloomed bright as ever. "Lu Yuaning," I asked her quietly, "why do you like me? I'm not your child. You're only a little over 10 years older than me." She smiled, her eyes soft. "You are my only child," she said. "When I was young, I never received even half the affection I longed for from my parents. So when it comes to my own child, I want to give him all the love I can." She grew friendlier by the day. When I confronted my father, told him that Lin Ji was a cuckoo stealing another's nest, full of ill intent, he struck me across the face and sent me away. "Don't come home again unless it's for your studies." Years later, after the metropolitan examinations, I stood on the Golden Palace steps, newly named third laureate. I remembered that conversation as if it had been yesterday. Back then, I had written Lu Yuaning a letter, telling her of the new laws in the capital, how women could now file for divorce and live freely. I told her that the reforms would soon reach even Luocheng. I urged her to leave. I was too young to understand then, how hard life was for women, how far away freedom truly was. Luocheng was closed and conservative, my father a stubborn relic of old ways, and Lu Yuaning, frail and ill, was trapped in that tiny, suffocating courtyard of 4 walls. Now, astride a tall horse, garlanded with flowers from bold and laughing young women of the capital, I rode through the streets with honor and joy. And yet, in that moment, my thoughts drifted to her. Had Lu Yuaning ever been so bright, so full of laughter, when she was young? If only she had never married my father. If only she had not been made to bear the title of my mother, to live a life of grievance and restraint. If time could be rewritten, I would wish for her to leave early, to live freely, happily, as she deserved. And this time, I would help her do it. The end.